Welcome to Zoom In, Zoom Out. I'm your host, Alan Liu. Unmanned systems have played a big role in Taiwan's asymmetric defense strategy. That includes not just aerial drones, but also buying more unmanned maritime platforms. One clear example is that the Lai Ching-te administration is planning to spend up to $900 million on just suicide drone boats. So why does Taiwan care so much about unmanned systems? And what does it mean for Taiwan's maritime security? Joining me today is Eric Du. He is the founder of the United Pacific Innovation Alliance, and he also recently just led a US delegation to Taiwan, focusing on unmanned maritime systems. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Alan, thank you so much for having me.
So first of all, I wonder if you can walk us through what this alliance is about.
The UPIA is a US-based industry alliance that tries to connect defense and dual-use technology companies with partners and policymakers across the Indo-Pacific. Taiwan is rapidly shifting toward asymmetric defense, and unmanned maritime systems are a big part of that strategy. But building that capability is more than just buying platforms and technology or products. Right? It requires integrating autonomy and communication modules, sensors, and industrial capacity into a coherent system.
In one recent social post, you mentioned that having a real on-site visits help distinguish between what is the reality and what sounds good. Based on your observation and what you saw during this trip, what's the reality of Taiwan's current unmanned system capacity?
Taiwan has world-class shipbuilding and fabrication capability. So these shipyards or even yacht builders, they are modern, they're highly skilled, and they can produce large, high-quality hulls and structural components with very impressive precision. On the other hand, the biggest challenge that I observe are actually in design or in system integration and also autonomy software. So turning these excellent ship hulls into fully functional autonomous USVs with resilient mesh networking, sensor fusion, edge AI, and also seamlessly integrated into Taiwan's defensive strategy, that is where the gap remains. It's actually a significant opportunity. Right? So these traditional shipbuilders or yacht builders, they already have the manufacturing excellence, and what they need help is on the software and the system side. So that leaves clear room for collaboration between US firms that specialize in these areas. That is the kind of practical partnership that we really wanted to explore on this trip.
When it comes to unmanned systems and battlefields, I think many people would directly associate it with aerial drones or UAVs. Why do maritime systems also matter in your opinion? And how do they work with other platforms like UAVs?
In a high-intensity conflict, especially maritime conflict over Taiwan Strait, in a potential invasion of Taiwan scenario, the USVs and UUVs, they play just as important roles. So the big strategic idea is the hellscape concept, right? So Taiwan doesn't try to match the Chinese Navy ship to ship. Instead, it turns the entire Taiwan Strait into a dense, layered gauntlet of unmanned systems that could generate relentless, multi-directional fires. So by defeating the invasion at the water's edge, Taiwan raises the cost so high that the Beijing may choose not to attack at all. So USVs are unique in the sense that they solve problems that aerial drones cannot. So some smaller UAVs, they have power limitation, right? So they're limited to a few hours of flight time. USVs, by contrast, they can remain on station for weeks or even months. They operate on wind or solar, or even they harvest ocean energy. Right, so they can carry much heavier payloads, such as large radars, electronic warfare jammers, sea mines, and even other UAVs.
What does Taiwan still need to do better to integrate unmanned weapon systems with conventional weapon systems? And what key technologies are involved?
Currently, Taiwan has all the right pieces on the chessboard. Right, you have the coastal missiles, you have manned ships, radar, artillery. But unmanned system, as you said, they're still not fully stitched together with those conventional capabilities, right? So the real issue is not in the technology itself. It's the lack of a mature concept of operations and proven manned, unmanned teaming doctrine. That's what concerned me. So without a clear doctrine, even thousands of drones and USVs won't deliver the effect that you intend.
As Taiwan develops its own unmanned capabilities, what do you think Taiwan should priority? For example, should we prioritize attack abilities or reconnaissance? What is the right balance?
I would say Taiwan should put the majority of investment into low-cost, attributable strike platforms that could carry just enough cheap, commercial-grade sensors to provide good enough ISR for targeting, and then they could strike at the invading forces. So that could allow you to enable the Hell's Gate concept. Now, of course, you also need to reserve some money to acquire smaller, more expensive, high-end ISR capability for a limited number of persistent, less attributable platforms, such as medium USVs or UUVs that could stay further back, that could feed precise targeting data to the strike swarm, and also cue Taiwan's conventional forces and coastal batteries.
Taiwan's special defense budget is currently still stalled in the legislature, and investment in domestic drone production is one of the hotly debated topics.
Right.
What impact do you think would cutting that funding have on Taiwan's and the world's manufacturing supply chains of unmanned weapon systems?
That is indeed a serious issue. But here's a deeper point that many people tend to miss, is that the real advantage in modern warfare isn't just having the drones or the components, not just having the toys available. Right? It's about how quickly a system can adapt and get those tools into the hands of operator. And how do you have an incentive system to achieve that outcome? Taiwan, by contrast, has the industrial base and the components, but its procurement system is still highly centralized and slow to move. Right, so your government tenders take years. So the point isn't to blame any political party for this, right? So the problem lies in the institution itself. So it's a system designed for peacetime deliberation and oversight, and not for lightning speed adaptation that unmanned warfare now demands. If the funding, and to your point, if the funding is cut or delayed even further, it won't just slow down the drone production, but in a longer term, right, it will keep Taiwan locked into a rigid system that can adapt at speed for this kind of war. And that directly undermines our defensive strategy, which relies on massive quantity of attributable systems that can evolve faster than the PLA can counter them.
We know Taiwan has been trying to build a China-free drone supply chain with its democratic allies. But a lot of local companies are still heavily reliant on Chinese drone components. What do you think Taiwan can do to overcome such challenges?
It is a global challenge, and not just for Taiwan, but also for US as well. So China still controls roughly 80% of the global drone supply chain. Taiwan, US, Europe, and even Ukraine are still using Chinese components. So what can Taiwan really do at this point? I think first, Taiwan needs to deploy a more aggressive financial incentive program. So like tax credits, subsidies, and fast-track certification to offset the cost premium for non-Chinese motors, battery cells, and sensors. Taiwanese companies, as you know, they already have the talent and the industrial base, but they won't invest in expensive new non-red production lines without the market signal, without the guaranteed large orders. So this is where Taiwanese government can step in and try to take on the risk. And also Taiwan should work with the United States, Japan, and also Australia to send a strong, consistent demand signal through multi-year contracts, joint development programs, and also public commitments.
We've heard of many timelines of a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan. For example, 2027, 2035, or even 2049. So do you think Taiwan's current unmanned system development is keeping pace? And if there's one priority area that we should focus on, what do you think it would be?
It is not keeping pace, and it should have happened maybe 3 years ago. We were definitely falling behind. But in order to answer your question, I would like to raise a rhetorical question. So why are we talking about unmanned system at all? Right? Why do we care? Manned platforms usually could put our operators, our warfighters in harm's way and cost a fortune to build, to operate, and to maintain. So unmanned system flips that equation, but only if it could be produced cheaply and it could scale up in a massive manner. So if we cannot achieve that, then we're talking about unmanned system in the wrong direction. So that's why I feel that Taiwan's single most important priority right now is building a resilient, non-China supply chain that could dramatically scale up production. Another side of that equation is energy security. It's rarely talked about. So if you want to manufacture at a large scale, you need to think about your electric grid. Now, so Taiwan's power grid is not capable to handle that kind of ramping up.
In your opinion, what's the current situation like in terms of Washington and Taipei's cooperation in defense innovation?
In terms of defense innovation, I believe that U.S. has spent considerable time and resources to help Taiwan stand up its own institutions. So currently, I think the responsibility or the focus would lie on the shoulder of Taiwan's own government. Taiwan has a defense innovation office that models after the US DIU. Now, it is very promising. The people there are very smart, highly capable, but are they empowered to do what we expect them to do? Now, that would be a question mark. But I believe that Taiwan's DIO is a formidable force that could be leveraged smartly, and it could be empowered so that it could be more effective in terms of fostering collaboration with the U.S. in the areas that tend to be more innovative, that tend to be more technology and commercial focused.
So in your meetings with Taiwanese officials during this trip, are there any key concerns raised by both sides, like US and Taiwan?
There's definitely concern about what exactly people are doing with the USVs or unmanned systems in general. That ties back to my original point about the lack of concept of operation. Even the US is trying to figure out. And of course, the Taiwan Navy and Coast Guard, they're looking at experiences from the US, also from Ukraine, but some of these scenarios may not be the right answers for Taiwan since we're operating in a different environment.
How about legal regulations? Should we consider any amendments to, better it and to streamline the process?
Right now, Taiwan needs to work on is testing and validation of these systems. So how do you enable commercial or private sectors to be able to test in a Taiwan operating environment? I think that's a key. If the Taiwanese government does not allow it, then that could be a huge problem. That's one thing. And the other thing is, it's less about the Taiwanese government's or legislation. It's more about commercial entities. Some of these U.S. companies, they're looking for partners that need to be non-red, right? They need to have financial transparency. For many manufacturers in Taiwan, some of them may not be familiar with that process. So that's something that need to be addressed to the commercial community in order to enable them to form partnership with the U.S.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching this episode of Zoom In, Zoom Out. What are your thoughts on Taiwan's asymmetric defense strategy? Leave a comment below to let us know what you think, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.